So the yellow level is the first level of the enterprise prism, which is all about the flow of value and the flow of money in the marketplace. So this is where we call them a player. So it's a bit like someone playing a musical instrument. So they can actually play the instrument and actually make some music as well. And if people resonate with that music, then people actually come to them. So it's not having to go out and find people and work so hard. Here is where these people, so these franchisees, already have a level of attraction because of the connection that they have with their customers and in the marketplace and maybe with other franchisees. And with that level of attraction, things start to get, well, yeah, a little easier, and certainly the cash flow increases as well. So they now have more mastery over the market, more mastery over the system. Maybe they're going out into their local area, they're starting to employ some local area marketing tactics and making connections in their local area, whether that be, say, with schools, with social groups. It might be on social channels as well, so whether that's LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube or wherever it is that they can connect to actually increase the attraction and, I guess, their identity in their marketplace so that they become more and more well known. At this stage, moving from the personal flow into the market flow, this is because and why these people are now tapped into the money flow, all right, which is really important. And so they can start to leverage things a little more because they are tapped into that flow. Now I mentioned that franchisees can be at this level, so maybe they still could be solo franchisees, they could be franchisees that are single unit, they could be franchisees that are multi-unit too, but when you're at the level of yellow, this is where the business is still fully reliant on this particular person, on the franchisee. So they're a player, but like if you're playing an instrument, as soon as you stop playing that instrument, the music stops. It's the same with the yellow level, and often they can be likened to an octopus. So they've got 8 arms but only 1 brain and 1 head. 8 arms, and they're trying with 2 arms to try and do the things with 8 arms. So sometimes they can be really stressed because they're trying to do everything in their business. So their state, the state that the yellow player is in, is self-reliance. They're reliant on themselves to get out there and make things happen. Or if they do have employees working for them, once again, those employees are solely reliant on the franchisee, and nothing happens in the franchise without the franchisee directing it or making it happen. This is if it is to be, it's up to me, and they just make everything happen. As I mentioned before, they do have attraction in the marketplace because they're tapped into the flow. But with this comes limitation because their growth is limited to how much they can do and how much they can actually take on. And of course, if they do take any time off work or out of their business, once again, things tend to go backwards as well because it is so reliant on them. So depending on the franchise that they've bought into, they can still be making a lot of money. A lot of people can have a very good lifestyle and quite a good level of wealth at the yellow player level. But if they take their foot off the pedal, then things start to go backwards and they may drop straight back into infrared again. Now they stay there because they've got freedom. When they're at the yellow level and they've got things coming to them, then they don't have, maybe they can take an afternoon off, or maybe they don't have to, work so hard through the day if they choose not to. They do have that flexibility of choice. And you know what? Sometimes it can be a bit self-indulgent because it's like, well, things are going well, things are coming to me. Maybe I can just, take a couple of hours off or a day off work, or maybe I can, I'm doing so well, things are good. Maybe I don't have to, focus on my team as much. The problem with that is if they become too self-indulgent and take their focus off doing what they're doing, then things will start going backwards. The cost of staying, as I said, they may be able to make a very good living and have a great lifestyle, but there's limited growth because it all depends on their capabilities and their capacity. So therefore they have a limited impact as well, even if they have 100 customers or a few staff as well. And they're quite isolated because it all depends on them. So that's the cost of staying at yellow level. I've mentioned a lot about the franchisee here. Be aware that employees can rise to this yellow level as well. And once again, they'd probably be higher up in their position, higher up in their franchise network, and once again, have more freedom and flexibility in the way that they work as well. So for someone at the yellow level to move up to the green level, the next one, it's all about starting to a little more discipline about the freedom and flexibility, and create a rhythm in the way that they go doing things. So creating a rhythm in their business and really mastering the systems and what it is that they're doing, and being experts at what they're doing so that they can move up to the next level. So let's have a look now at what that next level is, and that's the green level. So we're up at the green level. Remember, because at the yellow level, you've developed some sort of rhythm and mastery, and part of that rhythm and mastery means that you actually need other people around you. Because remember, at the yellow level, you're doing everything is reliant on you. So one of those key steps to get to here to green is to develop a team. So at green level, the performer, this is all about creating flow and therefore wealth because of the rhythm of the team. So this is called performer level. And I spoke before about the player. When you stop playing the music stops. When you're a performer though, and you have people around you, if you happen to stop playing, the music still continues because there's still other people playing instruments. So that's what we're meaning by a performer. So in developing that team, someone at a green level is now able to step away from the business where necessary, because they've built a team to be able to function, and a team to be able to function effectively whether they're there or not. And that's the real key thing of moving to yellow to green. The team can function, and you can step away from the business for a short period of time, and as you get better and better, a long period of time, and the business can still operate here. So it's about that profitable cash flow through your enterprise teams. And so all of that is about developing, in order to get here, is to develop the people around you so that they can be more empowered, so that they can be more self-reliant, so that they understand what's necessary in the business from an operational point of view, maybe even from helping the franchisee control their P&L as well, and actually contributing to the profitability as well as the sales building in their particular franchise unit or units. Now, often when people are becoming a multi-unit franchisee, this is typically where they would need to get to be a multi-unit franchisee. There are some that may be at that yellow level, but for them to be a well-operating franchisee and a multi-unit franchisee, they really do need to be at this green level here. So the state that they're in, it's a state of rhythm, and it's the team rhythm that they're creating and ensuring keeps on flowing. It's really about actually having a culture in that particular team and in your franchise units that you can be sure of the way they're going about it. So we're not just talking about being able to operate your franchise's systems and comply with whatever they need to comply with. It's not just about that running the systems and the compliance and building the sales. It's actually developing their own stamp on the franchise. Now, your franchise will have a culture. In fact, every business has a culture, whether it's by design or default, and that's something we're very, very passionate about at Remarkable Franchises, is helping people develop culture. But franchisees who are at a green level will actually have their own culture within the framework of your franchise network's culture. And when you go to some of your go visit your franchisees, that you can walk into one organization and yes, they're doing all the things that you expect them to do, but it still has a different feel from when you go and visit another franchisee's organization. Yep, they're still serving customers the same way. They're still doing the doing of the business, whether it's a cafe, they're still making the coffees and delivering the food the same way. And the layout's very similar, but there's just a different way that we do things here. And that's the culture. So people at the green level, franchisees at the green level, are developing that culture, whether it is intentional and by design or whether it's by default as well. They're also really into measurement. So these franchisees will tend to like their KPIs quite a bit. Now, whether they're financial KPIs, sales KPIs, it might be employee satisfaction KPIs, but they're going to like measuring what's going on in their business because that's the way that they measure their team's ability to function without them and to ensure that the franchise and the business runs successfully, whether they're there or not. They stay because they like the leadership. They stay because they like that feeling of accomplishment and they like the feeling of the harmony in their team or teams if they're a multi-unit franchisee. And so they get a lot of, they feel good about that. The thing is, the cost of staying there is that when you're working with teams too, there can be politics in amongst the team, and they do have to deal with that. They have to work at maintaining things. And when employee performance drops, then they get frustrated from time to time because they have to work to lift it up and work reasonably hard or help their people work hard to maintain the level of success that they are currently having. And of course, the cost of staying here is their freedom as well. And so what someone at the green level, actually, and some other thing that we've seen at the green level with franchisees is sometimes if they become too hands-off, they need to have that fine balance. Like certainly they need to be able to rely on their team because of the way that they run things. But if they go too hands-off and actually sort of abdicate their leadership, that's when you'll find that things will go backwards too. And then sometimes we've seen it where they overcompensate and go straight back into yellow level, and then they want to control everything, and then they don't give their employees any freedom whatsoever, and they want to direct them at all times. So it's about someone at the green level putting the systems and processes in place with their team to make sure that they are able and enable them to be empowered, enable them to step up and do the things that they want, and ensure that they are giving them feedback, a lot of feedback to keep them operating at a really good level, and that they're given praise and feel that they're involved in the business as well. That's what's going to help things stay smooth for someone that is a green level performer. So that if they're not playing the music still does keep playing and it doesn't become discord. And look, employees can also get to green level as well. We've seen plenty of employees, particularly in larger businesses and in franchise businesses that are larger, where they're in charge of a number of people in their team, and the team can operate without them as well. They would be operating at a green level performer in the spectrum as well, in the franchise spectrum. So for someone at the green level to get to the next level, which is the blue level, it's all about them really being able to utilize their authority. And I don't mean being authoritative here. It's using their authority because they've created so much success in performance that's developed their authority. And it's also about capital as well. So let's see what happens when you get to the blue level. So the blue level is the conductor level. And the thing that's different here, and I'll just relate it back to music again because these three levels kind of lend itself to that. So this is where they go from being a performer to the conductor. So the conductor isn't actually facing the audience anymore. So they don't need to face outwards and face the audience. This is where they actually turn around, have their back to the audience because they are busy actually conducting teams of performers. And the blue level does have those multiple teams and multiple streams. So yes, certainly we're looking at someone who is most likely at a multi-unit level here with quite a few teams, but they may also have other streams of income and in some cases other businesses as well, depending on how your franchise works. Some enable people to have multiple businesses as well, and some tend to frown on that too. So obviously you need to have good discussions with your people that join your franchise system on what's expected. But people at the blue level do have multiple streams of income and outside their franchise as well. They're going to have a strong portfolio. So maybe it's property, maybe it's stocks, maybe it's other business interests, so that they are generating certainly a great income and profitability, so personal income and profitability from their franchise, but that's not their only way of earning money, and they don't have to rely upon it solely anymore. And often here we're talking about people that have reached millionaire status or multi-millionaire status as well. And what it is that they're actually growing the assets in their business, assets in their personal life as well. So not just personal cash flow like we spoke about at the foundation level, and not just profitability now either. We're actually talking about that growing the asset. And if you remember back to that Talent Dynamics success formula that we talked about, it's not just revenue, it's not just profit. This is real wealth in the business and wealth in their lives by creating a sustainable asset and sustainable assets as well. And it might include growing capital too. So franchisees at the blue level, the emotions and the state that they are typically in is that they're very calm, they're very patient, and they have a lot of clarity. They know exactly what they're going after, exactly what their forecasts are, exactly where their goals are, exactly where they're headed, what their vision is, their time frame that they want to get there. They have a lot of clarity and a lot more than someone even at the green level would have. And that's because they're building and have built true wealth in their business and their life. Now they stay because they do like that control. And also they want to sort of, manage the risks as well. And also because they like the autonomy that being that conductor gives them. And here you can find franchisees where they go, you know what, I'm going away for 4 weeks, and they'll just leave their teams to it. And maybe they have someone, in their franchise who's actually like an ops person or like a general manager actually managing their businesses as well, so that they can go away overseas for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, come in, come out, dabble in the business when they feel like it, step away when they feel like it as well. The cost of staying there, however, is that then they get people looking at them and the lifestyle that they've perhaps created and maybe critical. So maybe it's critics from their actual franchise network and the support team going, why aren't you in your business? Or we'd like to see you in there a little more. Maybe it's from other franchisees who often will be at a lower level looking and going, well, this isn't fair. This isn't fair. How come you can do this? You shouldn't be able to go away for 4 weeks. I work hard. You're not taking care of your business. And it's purely because they're not at that level, and they don't understand that the way that you operate at a higher level is completely different from the level that they may be currently at. And just on that too, with the franchise spectrum and all the levels that are there, and because you can move through different levels, every level has its own level of awareness and consciousness. And unless people have been at a higher level, then they're not going to understand that level. Even if they've been at green level and dropped back to infrared as they've opened up another maybe unit, so they might drop back to infrared, but they still have the ability to think at that green level. It's important that they act at the level that they're at, and if they have gone infrared, make sure that they're taking care of that cash flow and doing what they need so that personally they're okay. And maybe the goals that are being set, it needs to be, well, we need to firstly set goals to make sure that you're okay and stable before we then look at increasing your business or doing a higher level strategy too. But if people have never been up at that level, it's very hard for them to understand the success and also the way that franchisees at this level, at the blue level, actually go about doing things too. So because of that, and we're talking about your larger franchisees, your more successful franchisees, and typically they are multi-millionaires and millionaires, then with that, because there's a lesser percentage of them at that level, comes the isolation at that level as well. And sometimes they can, lose their passion because everything's sort of working around them. If they feel a bit isolated or not needed anymore sometimes, they can lose their passion, especially if they're going out and experiencing lots of other things in the world that they really like. So the way for someone at blue level to move up is through trust and promise. So when we get to this next level, we're going to do things a little differently. By building that large amount of trust and also a larger promise, that's when we're moving from the blue level, the last stage of that enterprise prism, up to the top level. Let's have a look at what that is. So here, we're not going to go through these in the same amount of details because, as I mentioned earlier, when you get to that indigo level, typically you're talking about, billionaires or people that really have such influence that they have the trust of the marketplace here. And this is where, like the indigo level, it's called the trustee level. So it's gone from the conductor to actually, having the trust and social trust and global trust, or certainly it might be national trust, to be able to go and really hold the promise for an entire market, for an entire brand, or for an entire nation, per se. So it's really at that much higher level here. And they're creating that trust in the long term. So at this alchemy prism, there's very few people in the franchise sector that really would fall into this category. But let me give you a little bit of an example. So at the indigo level of trustee, of having the trust in the market, in the franchise sector, it's possible that this may refer to some of those multi-unit franchisees that own like 90, 100, 180 units in their franchise, where they own just entire states worth of franchise units. It could also relate to someone, particularly in a large franchise brand, that's actually maybe a JV partner when you're opening a new country. And the reason that it can open in the new country is because that person usually has an extraordinarily high level of wealth, an extraordinarily high level of connection in business, in government, and connection actually in the market, and a huge amount of trust in that nation, in that market, that enables a franchise network and a franchise brand to be able to go and set up in that country as well. So there are a couple of examples of what could be someone at the indigo level in the franchise sector. When we get up to the violet level, this is the composer. So we're now talking about writing the rules of the game, of determining actually the music that we dance to. They're actually writing the way that society will be influenced, the way that society will and influencing the way that society will behave and where it's moving to in the future. So in the past, we're talking about the setup of money, we're talking the setup of regulation. So it very much was the domain of governments and the domain of nations to actually be the composers and make the rules of the game, the rules that everybody else has to follow. As the world is changing, like we've talked about businesses and franchises needing to be adaptive and be able to change more quickly, the world is changing at such a fast pace that now people are looking and going, you know what, government is no longer the people that we look up to in the same way and trust in the same way to be able to create the societies and the world that we want to live in. And so now it's starting to become the domain of leaders and other leaders and entrepreneurs to actually rewrite the rules of the game. And you'll be seeing more and more of top entrepreneurs actually changing the way things are done and cutting across the way that things used to be done, like with cryptocurrency, with blockchain technologies and cryptocurrency that's cutting across like our whole financial way of doing things now. So people like Richard Branson, people like Elon Musk from Tesla and SpaceX are actually getting together and actually rewriting the way that things are going to be done now and moving towards the future, so that not only their businesses are sustainable, but that society and the world is sustainable as well, you know, right down to the sustainability of the planet. So that's the composer level. And then right up at the last level here is the legend level. So this is where they become a symbol of the time, really leaving a lasting legacy that lasts not just you know, in one generation, but lasts for generation after generation. And sometimes, and actually sometimes unfortunately, most people actually get to this level and become the symbol of their time actually upon their passing. So people like Nelson Mandela would be a legend of our time, and a real symbol of the time. Princess Diana was a symbol of her time and became a symbol of an entire nation, and in fact many nations. So Steve Jobs probably is a legend of our time too, and eventually we would predict that someone like Elon Musk will also become a legendary status. So that's the 9 levels in the franchise spectrum, in the wealth spectrum, or as you heard it called, the wealth lighthouse.